Hello, everybody. It's that time again. Start up a brand new journal. This time I labeled it with the date. So, just in case you didn't know what the date was, it is the 3rd of January, 2019. At approximately 1:26 p.m., or roughly 1:30 if you don't want to be specific. I had proper hypnosis. I should say that. My earbuds didn't come out, and I appeared to have a better overall time with my hypnosis last night. It took me much longer to get to sleep. It made me, I keep saying this over and over and over again, but sleep is something I got to get done right, which, I mean, I think might start happening without much provocation for me, if I'm honest. I've started to eat less. Straight up, just have started to eat less. Like, feel fuller in general, like, literally really full. My nausea is something that's there, that I have to contend with still, and so that can also make it difficult to eat. It's different. Like, these are things that I wasn't necessarily feeling on my body anymore, previously to the lion's mane mushroom. And it kind of makes me wonder how much or what did damage me. What damage did I do, and how much was done. It's definitely nice knowing that, well, quite frankly, that this is a thing, that more people don't know about lion's mane mushroom, and that it can actually help so significantly in these ways. For people who've had, like myself, more than likely, a lot of acute both nerve and brain damage. I believe I had a mini stroke. Not a seizure, but a mini stroke. I don't know what caused it, truthfully, but more than likely is the result of stress, decreased threshold for them, more than likely as a result of supplemental use. And, yeah, the fact that I have my own cardiovascular issues, or more than likely blood clotting factor issues. And what most likely saved me during this was the cannabis. I will attribute the cannabis to what prevented the majority of the damage and helped to solidify less damage overall to, well, my what's a good way of putting it? I guess nerves, neurons, whatever. I don't know about my heart or my lungs. I do know previous to this point, the only reason why that I'm thinking this is due to certain memories that I had of during that time period of having these weird nerve problems, these weird, like, sharp sudden pains around my body, along with randomly, like, feeling like something. During this time, I was extremely aware of what my body was feeling. I could literally, at this point, feel every individual major blood vessel in my body when I was doing this. take that with a grain of salt, though. You can only feel so much. But I believed I could feel, I literally focused as much as I possibly could on my body, constantly figuring out what it was feeling and why it was feeling, and my meditation mostly focused upon going over my body initially. Going, okay, start at the top, go down, slowly relax, standard basic meditation that I was taught. I got real fucking good at it to the point where I was able to start feeling shit. I only preference this by saying this is the reason why I think this. I started getting blood clots. More than likely, I feel due to the supplements that I was taking at the time and the ingestion method and the overall overwhelming amount. There are things that when in the proper dosage will have great benefits. But as soon as you go above that dosage, it is no longer beneficial at all. It is simply bad. And I believe I started doing that over and over and over again. On top of abusing cannabis and, well, abusing my supplements. I thought I was the big shit, and that I knew exactly what I was doing at that point. My ego had gotten too big in areas where it didn't realize how little information and safety there actually was. It's just too much overconfidence. Unfortunately, the results are the results. I more than likely suffered a mini stroke. I've had my doctors take a look at me, and I've had my blood pressure done after the fact, and I've not suffered anything similar to it. I was on blood thinners. I gave those to myself purposefully after I realized my sister was in the hospital for blood clots, because, of course, I was just out of the hospital and definitely had my own issues with paranoia. Well, it turns out I probably should have been paranoid. I was more than likely the first sufferer of a blood clot in the family, and I more than likely have multiple throughout my body that are building up and will hit me in the future. That feels like shit to think. I know it's not possible for me to know. I only know that my blood flow in certain areas decreased drastically in certain things, and I've suddenly noticed all these other things started to appear. Stuff that didn't before have much blood going through it, all of a sudden had much more going through it. That's how I could feel my blood vessels and everything else. I could feel the warmth and change of pressure and direction of flow. It took a lot to get to that point, and not everybody, I think, can, honestly. I'm just very in tune with certain parts of my body, I believe, or maybe I just have a better and easier time, maybe as a result of when I was younger, being so physically active. I don't know what the case is, but yes, I seem to have a great ability to detect how my body feels. So it's actually kind of a bad thing, because slight pains can be pretty rough, because my body will constantly focus on it, and that would be the only thing, and it ramps up and it gets worse. So, but yes, let's go back to this. So I believe I got a mini stroke. I believe because of my blood clotting issue, it's a genetic thing, as with my sister, and the supplements that I was consuming at the time possibly being a risk factor for increased blood clotting at the dosages that I was taking and the way I was taking it. eventually coalesced into that mini stroke and ultimately caused most of the memory and personality changes that I started to have happen to me. That continued and got worse as I tried to compensate and get back to what I felt like I had lost. The internal peace, tranquility that I had gained, the confidence in how I said things was lost. So many things were lost. All brand new. It's like a fucking double whammy. And it really hurt my psyche. Because it felt like I could never get back to that again. That's a scary thought. And unfortunately, anybody that has a neurodegenerative disease, they know without a shadow of a doubt that they every single day, every single second of every single day are deteriorating and getting worse mentally and physically. That's horrible. I couldn't imagine that. I really can't. It's something that terrifies me. So when I look at Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or dementia or any number of long-term neurodegenerative brain diseases, I think this is what we have to give to the people that spent all their lives fighting and sacrificing just for the basic commonality of man, probably taking their licks, probably going through their own trials and tribulations with, as you damn well know, it was way worse in the service industry and many others for a very long time. You know, and they grew older, and that was it. Take all their licks, they don't get to have any fun. The fun they got was a few years before everything went to shit. Think about that. You had a few years after working your ass off, and then it's all gone. Everything slowly goes away. That's terrifying. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. There's tests that you can get and all of a sudden you know. That's almost worse. At least if you know, you can do some preventative actions or symptomatic treatments, but that's it. This is terrible. I don't understand why there isn't more focus on this. It is a gradual creeping that will constantly happen. And as more and more of this pollution, more and more of these basic carcinogens that we probably don't even know about or even aware to think about yet, that exist, that we're now starting to get the results from the 70s and 80s. You get what I mean? Like, we're already in the next carcinogenic mode. We don't know how the long-term damage is going to get us. We don't know the increased cancer. We don't know the increased mental problems. We don't know anything. We can only guess. And even the long-term social, you have to get into genetics and environment and so many things. So it's difficult to ever figure it out. I hope I don't have that. And I hope all I did was suffer a mini stroke and damaged my nerves. I know that seems like it's bad to hope for that, but that's a better option than the rather less likely, but still an option or possibility of those brain diseases or autoimmune diseases. Yeah. I need to get diagnosed. I need to figure out what's going on. I need the tests. And I want to get started with any preventative medications that I could possibly get on. Or supplements, diet, lifestyle changes. My point is to be as effective and as there as I am, as me as I am, as possible for the rest of my life. I don't want to lose me, but you will. Everybody does. The brain eats itself over time to try and basically help with all this extra brain shit that I have to keep alive, but that's not being used. So why am I keeping it alive? Standard tactic. It's a brain shortcut. I talked about them, I think, earlier, but yeah, it's a brain shortcut. Essentially, the brain's like, oh, well, this is what you use, and so that's all you need. Sort of like when, I guess you could kind of see it as like a surplus in a corporate environment. I imagine the only reason why I say that is because The Office, Oscar explaining to Michael about how surplus works. It's kind of not that inaccurate. Like, most people will not continuously read or continuously stay mentally active and physically active as they grow older. Instead, they slow down, they drive more, they get out less, they eat mostly prepared or softer foods, or they'll go out more often, which is actually an increase in caloric load to begin with. So, yes, there is a lifestyle that will, for most people, that is going to happen that will most likely not help the situation. But genetics plays a pretty big factor in it too. My grandfather has type 2 diabetes. On my mother's side has type 2 diabetes, and he's over 70 years old. And he didn't get it until then. But he is also exhibiting signs and symptoms of stuff like dementia, and apparently it runs in my mother's side of the family. So I would love to have that motherfucking algorithm do a scan of my brain. If I could, I would. I'd literally rip the program if it was free to use, or if I had the ability. Like, if it's free to use, I'd just fucking figure out a way to get my own MRIs and get them scanned in that thing. If it wasn't free to use, I'd still figure out a way to maybe pay like $20 to do it. But if even that wasn't a thing, and I was still very determined, I would most likely try, and I had the skills, I'd most likely try to just fucking figure out where it's held and take it. Or, as in copying it. Here's the thing. You can just copy things. You don't have to delete afterwards. If you make your presence known that you're doing something, then ultimately you failed. The only reason why you need to let anybody know anything is happening is if you want them to. So that way they do reactionary things that you can, well, use to your advantage. I'm not as afraid as I was yesterday about my mom and my future. What seemed to have helped that is giving it time to mull over, good sleep, and finding a new YouTuber that kind of deals with some of the substances that I'm thinking about and the experience, and it kind of put my mind at ease. I definitely would like to try and test with a reagent one of my stuff, but I don't have the money for that. I don't even really technically. I should have possibly saved the in retrospective. Now that I'm feeling the way I am. But then you go, well, what if you hadn't taken the cannabis, would you have even thought about it, or even thought it was a good idea? Because it relaxed you and made you find this individual who really stressed testing it, and then you just automatically, you know what I mean? Like, it's relative. Things just happen. So sometimes the 2020 hindsight vision isn't even real, because technically you never would have realized that thing to begin with if you hadn't done the original thing in the first place. So, my 2 cents. At the same time, there is a lot of fear in terms of how I'm going to proceed forward. I did want to escape for the longest time. I've come to realize that I'm never going to feel okay if I don't come to terms with this before I move forward. And really what I want to do is come to terms, let go, and to stop with the fear of knowing and doing things that I know will make me feel better and right. It's not that I don't know that these things are good for me. It's that I don't want things that are good for me. I don't believe I deserve them. And so on, basically. Most severely depressed people have this issue. They eventually just give up hope. It doesn't matter that it could help. You just want to slowly watch everything disappear as you die. Friends and family get out of your life, isolating yourself more and more, watching more and more of this social media and TV show about all these people having fun, triggering those their social responses of inadequacy and mediocrity, fear and anxiety and depression get ramped up. People don't really talk about what they're going through, how they feel, and what they might try and do to better themselves. Instead, they start to blame others. This is why this is happening. This is why that's happening. They start to go off the deep end in terms of their anxiety and feelings of inadequacy. It just gets to the point where, unfortunately for them, they are, stuck until that stops. People at this point in depression are insane. That's not the nicest way to put it, but it is ultimately the truth. there is a massive discrepancy about who they are and what their actions are. They have solidified the neural connections and thought patterns of their inadequacies and depression and problems. It is now as though you might say your depression does not define you. For them it does, because that is their only thing that they focus on and think about. It is them. For them, there is no separation between those feelings and them. And the longer it goes on, the harder that is to break. So yes, I believe people have some significant issues when it comes down to how they view how a person should be able to get better. I recognize it's going to take time. I recognize that it's going to be rough, and I recognize that it's possible that I might not be able to fully complete everything that I need to do before, unfortunately, shit hits the fan. I could be wrong, and I could be overanalyzing and taking things and yada yada. And I really hope that's the case. I hope that's the case. I really want myself to be wrong in this regard. It's a prediction based about fear. Of course you don't want your fears to be true. But that doesn't change reality. You know, people afraid of spiders just doesn't change the fact there are still spiders in the world. It's how you deal with that fear. So, I'm now on the path that I've chosen for myself, which is therapy, appropriate medication, and a slow, tedious, hard climb to being mentally and physically healthy again. It's gonna... I don't know, I'm excited, I'm afraid, so many emotions, honestly, so many emotions, and they flip so often, because I'll realize, oh, this could happen, and then I think about that, or oh, this could happen, I think, oh, that's good, and it's all very relative, you know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how things are gonna play out, and the best I can do is see everything that goes on after the fact. I'm going to be heavily monitoring myself again. I've not started to meditate. I'm kind of afraid. I experienced ego death through meditation, and I had trouble after that going back to meditating as often. But that wasn't the nail in the coffin. I still meditated. The nail in the coffin was that stroke. Yeah, by and large, it really was what ultimately did me in. It changed so much within a week. My overall thought patterns, my overall memories, the way I acted, the way I felt, and ultimately the way my body was able to be controlled and felt. And it slowly got worse. So you can imagine that doesn't feel good. And that needs to change. Yeah, it's one of those things where, sure, there exists neural pathways that I formed, and there exists things that I did, and I might help possibly reconnect those areas before I even or they are connected, they're just not firing. Whatever the case is, it doesn't change that I've had a year of a completely different life. Completely different life. Diet, exercise, and thoughts. Entirely different. Behavioral patterns and ways of dealing with stress. Ultimately speaking, there is nothing I can do outside of what's available for me. I have to pee so damn bad. I'm sorry. Alright. So yeah, as a result, I've been cautious with meditation. I realize that my body and mind are extremely susceptible to it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know what, ego death was until, later on, and I started looking up LSD because I was like, what the fuck did I just experience? All these visuals, in my mind's eye, and this, amazing grid, almost like a computer point system, spread out over what felt like the entire universe. Whippoorwills waving through it, joining together to create their own energies. So many other things. It's beautiful. Absolutely stunning. And the ego death was just terrifying. And I immediately snapped right up from it. I wasn't able to let go then and fully experience the ego death. I had to sort of stop it. I severed the connection that I had and immediately popped up. A lot of people can't do that, and psychedelics don't allow you to do that. It's a drug. You're going to be on that drug until it's out of your system. So in a way, meditation is better in that regard. You are able to stop if you do not want to go that far. I must admit that it was a good experience, and I did regret not letting go and experiencing it in its full entirety. Now that I know what it is, and now that I know I'm not going to die, and all this other stuff. At the time, it was brand new to me. I didn't even know what an ego death was. In fact, I didn't even think meditation could be giving me the results that I was given. I thought it was just breathing and calming down. But there's so much more to it. So, yes, I jumped into something, went gung-ho again, took it overboard, and got burned as a result. So be careful. Luckily, unlike psychedelics, it's easier on the brain and a lot less destructive. I did feel much better. I did not have the ramp up of anxiety or ramp up in thoughts of depression or suicide. In fact, I felt better afterwards, even though I didn't completely go through it. But I did feel weird and different. From that point forward was when I had this energy that I have now, this weird energy that's just there constantly. It's full, and the reason why I say it's weird is because this is how I imagine most people feel, on average. I believe that most people don't even or can't comprehend the way I'm feeling this because their average is this. They didn't have the depression for as long as I did, or the major depression, or the PTSD. They just didn't have the same neurological stressors that ultimately changed the way my brain works. And so they just, I don't think, would understand how weird it truly felt for me to have, even though I was feeling good, to have this constant, never-ending supply of energy that I could dig into, but was manic. And as my anxiety increased, so too did my manic symptoms. Does that make sense? I say manic because that's a good way to describe it, but there was no diagnosis, and obviously there was nobody to say yay or nay during that point in time. But after that, that's when I started having my I started having my changes of heart and how I viewed my mom and the people around me in my life after time. So I had this, I continued talking with my mom and everything for about a month and a half or so, maybe a month, maybe a few weeks. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly when things occurred because I wasn't paying attention and wasn't doing this where I monitored everything and took stock of stuff. So I'm going off of rough guesstimations. So forgive me if things aren't exact. However, then that's when I gave myself the UTI, and things really ramped up from there. Like, I had my weird thing with my brain after the UTI and antibiotics and other stuff they gave me to help. And it was sometime around mid-December, beginning of the end of December-ish area that I had that mini stroke. Or basically it was definitely in December, and definitely mid to mid-late November was when I gave myself that UTI. After that, my feelings of anxiety increased so drastically because I could feel so much pain and feel all these issues that were occurring and all this stuff, like the severe sensitivity that I had gained as a result of going through everything that I had was actually causing more issues for me than it was helping, because it made me more anxious, it made me feel more pain, it made all these things worse and stress out. And I was getting all this information from the doctors saying, oh, well, you really shouldn't be feeling this, or oh, we really probably, basically along the lines of it's been abnormal. So I didn't know what had caused those feelings then. And I had other issues before that point. With my nerves and feeling like things were clotting and then breaking off and then going somewhere else down the line. Like I actually traced one from my foot going up my major vein in my thigh, like going up from my ankle all the way up through my thigh, inside groin. Could feel it travel up deep in on my torso, and then it hit my lungs, and I just got a sudden burst of pain in my lungs, and then it ripped off, it felt like, and then I felt this thing going through my left arm, and then eventually it just kind of disappeared. And that was just the one time. I had stuff like that happening for months. So, yeah, I do have trepidation, because that was right around the time that I was mostly just reducing my diet. Not making it healthier or anything, just reducing the amount that I was eating at the time. And vaping lots of cannabis. And meditating and some basic walking the dog exercises. And I was having these symptoms, which is one of the reasons why I started to panic, for the lack of a better term. I really started to have issues with my anxiety and what it could mean and what was going on with me. This is the first time I ever had a UTI, first time I ever had pain in this region, in this way. I knew I had done other stuff to myself that could have caused other nerve damage, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about it because it was so embarrassing. In reality, I think, truthfully, I should have been talking to my doctor, like, look, I did this rectally, and I'm pretty fucking sure I fucked up my nerves down there. I want them tested. Say that shit. If that is you, say it. Get it tested. Nerve damage is no joke. And if it's what's your first time, and you don't know what the fuck you're doing like me, then yeah, you can cause issues and damage to occur. So don't just say it's fine. It's not fine. In that same vein, realize that you have nothing to be ashamed of. Okay? I understand that people want you to feel ashamed about the idea of trying to make yourself feel good. But you should never feel bad unless you are hurting others doing this. So, and even then, if the others that are wanting to get hurt, then it's kind of a moot point up into a certain level of hurting. But anyways, it's one of those unfortunate things where I saw the symptoms, didn't take them into account, didn't talk about them, didn't say anything. It took way too long before I did bring things up. By that point, the people that were around, they weren't informed enough to really be able to make a decision. It took me forever just to be able to get an appointment with my urologist from my primary care after telling her I had issues with my prostate. It took multiple visits. It should have been the first damn recommendation, but I had to specifically say multiple times, I want to go there, until it finally got done. It's something that I've realized a lot in lower income doctors, basically. People that usually deal more with the people who have access or other state program insurance and are generally on other state program things and are generally not above middle class. They don't fucking care, or the ones that do are hamstrung by what they can do or say or suggest. It's a terrible system, really, filled with people that were beaten down by the system and the people in it. Forcing mostly just the scientists that come up with the stuff that they give you to be the real unsung heroes. Because otherwise, doctors ain't shit without them. And I mean that. You are literally nothing without the medication you prescribe. A counselor is the one that you go to for mental health. Basically, you're worthless without medication and diagnosis. And I hate to tell you this, but your being diagnosed is better off by some AI for certain things than any doctor. Same with same goes for most other things, it turns out. But I don't want to get into that. And I always poo-poo on doctors. Doctors have a shitty, rough job that people do not respect anymore, or even think is really good enough anymore for what they do. And there is a large amount of old generation at the top that are inflexible, to put it mildly. Recognize, and they've been in the game so damn long, and if they're running whatever, they only care about money, which is what makes the hospital stay afloat. But ultimately, it's another conversation as to regards to subsidizing hospital care with the government and making universal health care a thing, therefore being able to put more emphasis and money into, something like quantum computers, which could possibly increase the overall speed of discovery of new substances and drugs, being able to run through a simulation and own studies. Like, there's just more stuff that can be, money that can be put into stuff that ultimately does help. It just takes time, it takes money, and you're not going to get any back. That's the shit that I don't like. That's the shit, like, medicine is available to everybody and should be affordable. It doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter how it's made, and it doesn't fucking matter how rare your disease is. This shit pisses me off, and it's very indicative of not giving a fuck of your fellow man, and completely full of greed and corruption. It's a systemic problem, one that is driven by the fact that your reward is the very thing that you're getting. So of course your brain is now trained to think that doing what you are doing is the right thing. Anything that gives you dopamine has that response. Your brain starts to go instinctively towards it and want it, need it, crave it, have it. If that describes you with money or any substance, you're addicted. Okay? And it's bad, because anybody that's at the top has that addiction. Because you need the money to stay at the top, to have all these things that you definitely need. But they're not just nice to have, but you need them, right? Otherwise you can't live without them. Oh, I see now, it's not quite that way. I mean, you might be able to live without them, you just don't want to. You hear what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And then I straight up stole that from my counselor. We were discussing my cannabis use. And the way I talked about it, and I realized that, yeah, the way I talked about it made it more apt to an actual dependency / addiction than any. Well, I mean, that's the thing. if you take a antidepressant every single day and you go through the withdrawals of not taking it, or an anti-anxiety like a benzodiazepine, you know, it's legal and is generally accepted. It's not nice. People generally know that it's not a good thing, but they don't criticize and ostracize them for it, and they're able to eventually get help. Hopefully. However, it's also very apparent to me that it's not exactly the same thing. Yeah. I have issues with doctors. My guess is just because they're not perfect. They're human. What I'm looking for is unequivocal 99.99% accuracy shit when it comes down to diagnosing and coming up with treatment plans that help or fix the problem. I'm not here for some bullshit helps a little bit crap. That's stupid and asinine. If that's your go-to, then it's a bad go-to. It's unfortunately the main go-to for a lot of diseases. Treat the symptoms, not the disease. Here's the thing, if it's bacterial, antiviral, you have to wait till after the fact to see how significant the damage to your nerves might be. Because yes, your nerves can and will be damaged by bacteria and viruses. Okay, that's just a given. It's not going to change much over time. When you're in an infection, your body fights it. So, but your body is fighting a foreign invader that is doing damage to you, that is causing those issues. So, as far as my awareness and understanding of the concept is for being sick with a virus or bacteria, which is an infection for bacteria, but I digress. Apparently, I've been saying it wrong, and it wouldn't be a cold, it would be an infection. I need to get some stuff done today. I got the time. I'm going to be calling after I pause this my SMI clinic and primary care respectively. See if I can get an appointment or call back at least. And that's really all I can do. Gotta hit Costco, get some ink. Suppose I'll wander around Costco for a while, look at shit, sit on some chairs, and then check out and print my stuff. I'd like to have multiple copies, but in reality I only need the one. However, they can scan it. They have copiers, and if they don't, I can always print more. But still, I don't like the fact that I might have to do that. That does annoy me. And I think I want to do that now. So I'm gonna pause this and just get that done now. So SMI stuff is done. Got my psychiatrist appointment locked in. Right. Got my case manager. He's going to call me tomorrow afternoonish, talk about when he'd like to schedule a home visit. Left a message for primary care, but I've left messages before. It is the 3rd of January. You would think you'd have a doctor or the ability to pick up a fucking phone. I'm guessing I'm going to have to drive there today after I go to Costco, which is stupid that I even have to do that and pisses me off tremendously. So I'm going to go over to the one that's over on a Country Club and Baseline / Guadalupe. Get there, then there's the 60 right off the bat. Go drive down the 60 until I get to Stapley, take my left, go to a place, see if they in person will give me a fucking appointment, and then, move on, do whatever the fuck I want to do at night after printing everything. I don't really have anything that I'm doing for pleasurable activity. I need to figure that out. Because as I've been doing this, well, yes, I've been feeling good about getting things done and feeling like I am moving towards a direction that is good for myself. I am also feeling very much like I don't have any relief, any release, any fun. I need to figure that out. I used to be video games, but I don't really have a computer for video games anymore, and that's not to say that there aren't fun video games that can be run on crap hardware. It just doesn't mean that I like those games. To anybody that goes, well, you won't know if you haven't tried. I'm like, do you see people watch horror genres? When, sure, they'll try it out, but every once in a while, but for the most part, they tend to stay away from it because they know they don't like them. It's something I know. I don't really like certain things. So, yeah. I'm taking to standing up now and pacing. I kind of want to put this somewhere in the middle of the room where you'd be able to hear me so I don't have to carry it, but this is really not a big deal, so it's whatever. What else? The else in the room is pretty basic. Pretty fairly basic. It feels a lot like everything I'm doing is fake. And it's not me, and it's not what I want to do. But at the same time, it feels like that it is me, and that I want to do it. So I'm having issues. I don't know. I'm always having issues. Day by day, journals are helping a lot more than you'd think. I think my next step is to start instituting a better diet overall and meditation. While I get basic things done, and to help with stress from basic stuff and everything else. But in the meantime, all the while trying to see if I happen to find anything that I enjoy, so trying out hobbies and stuff. It's difficult because, truthfully, if you want to get into any hobby, you're going to need money. Every hobby has money. That's just the way it's going to be. There are hobbies that require very little entry cost, but ultimately still require you to have either materials on hand, which more than likely you do, or you're going to have to get them anyways. So, there's other things regarding other things that are happening on, like, I personally saw that they came out with this new coil for my vaporizer, and I went, shit, I want that. I don't even know what it costs. It's probably gonna be like $12. I don't have $12 to buy that, and I don't even have the fucking cannabis to go use it. It's a mute point. Yeah. And truthfully, it's, well, nice is only so good. As you see, my true treatment plan, in all honesty, would be to continue microdosing cannabis, on occasion having increased dosages through vaporization over time, and then leaving it alone with microdosing and then increasing again, while on top of the 4-ACO-DMT, hopefully creating neurogenesis, and then the lion's mane mushroom helping to facilitate and strengthen those connections along with my other supplements. If the cannabis was going to be introduced more often in between doses, I believe it would increase neuronal activity, nerve activity, and actually help strengthen even more so those thoughts, feelings. However, I believe it could also be detrimental in that, because if you are not using it correctly, you will gain habits that are not what you want. You feel good, you feel accepted, you feel all these things, but you're sitting around and doing nothing. It's counterintuitive. I understand that it's the big thing, but you still have to be a part of the world. I also have to say that I do believe psychedelics in general will help to make you want to be more open and explore the world in general in the first place. So keeping that exploratory mode on and feeling as if things are still new, continuing cannabis while exploring and doing these good habits could solidify them, if done properly, but I don't know, and it might actually be easier just to use L-glutamate to increase it. Mainly what I'm thinking about is just getting neurons to fire again that weren't there before, or continuing to have neurons continue firing even after they're not really being as stimulated as they once were. So, yeah, I believe it could potentially be synergistic. I would love to keep it in my repertoire, and I will try to do so when I can, but ultimately it's expensive. It's difficult to keep perfect as time goes on. 2 grams will last me about 4 days of concentrate, which isn't nearly enough for 2 weeks until I was able to get to the next dose. So instead, I believe there needs to be a change in the way I use it. Instead of throughout the day, to manage sort of like microdose, but up and down and up and down. You know, it's not really. It's just mega dosing, but trying to keep the mega dose stable. I believe it would be time instead to decrease usage to max 3 times a day at specific intervals, alongside in conjunction with treating myself as a reward to certain actions, or some other basic stuff that I'll have to get into later. But yeah, it's one of those things where I just don't know what it is I'm going to be doing on that end. And I like cannabis. It makes me feel good. Helps with pain, helps with anxiety, helps with a lot of stuff, and in general helps me meditate and all this other stuff. And it's like all these good things, and like I have very little negative reactions. Yes, it can increase paranoia and stuff like that, but it hasn't. Honestly, I don't think it even was increasing anything when I was going through my symptoms. Truthfully, I used it as a coping mechanism for the symptoms that I had. When I was high, I didn't care or even notice the idea of somebody watching me or even caring if they were. Anything. Like, those anxieties went away. Those feelings of being watched and being paranoid and all these things actually decreased when I was under the influence of this drug at high enough doses. Lower doses were actually very opposite for me. The lower the dose and the more drawn out it was at this time period increased my anxiety, increased my paranoia, and I think I know the reason why. I think it ended up being such that I had literally replaced the THC and other neurotransmitters that get expressed through the use of this drug to only be expressed during the use of this drug. It had been so often, for so long, and in such a way that it, I think, was the replacement for my own ability of emotional self-control. I used this to control my emotions versus my mind to control my emotions. And by that I mean not react poorly to them and understand that they pass. So it took a while. It took a long time to kind of come back. I believe the mini stroke was honestly something that occurred in an area where it didn't. Occurred more than likely in an area where my brain was connected for my rationalization. It reduced my rationalization. It reduced my logical capabilities, and instead I operated very much more on my subconscious feelings and thoughts and actions. Because that's what I constantly looked to understand what was going on, instead of taking a step back and realizing that my subconscious, while it notices a lot of things, is not, by any stretch of the imagination, perfect or all-knowing or all-powerful, for that matter. In fact, most people's subconscious, I believe, are actually just I shouldn't say that. They have a subconscious, but it is attached to another consciousness that you talk to oftentimes. But you don't realize it, that you're talking to it, because it's a manifestation of something you created, right? Unfortunately, that creation has to be attached to something, or fortunately, depending on your perspective. So I believe that a lot of people are talking directly to their subconscious, but they don't realize it, because they're getting some thinking and changes in the overall attitude. It's basically, I think that there's a small window there into your other side. And you can talk to yourself enough times to eventually you're able to see a change. If you ask yourself over and over and over again, why do you do this? Why do you do this? Why? Eventually you shout at yourself, this is why. Stop asking. And, well, from that point forward, you basically have what you have. You either take that or you don't. You might not like the answer you give yourself. Nobody controls that. And you might not believe it, because you'll come up with other things and all these other things are complicated and deeper meaning and all this, and sometimes, I hate to tell you this, but your brain comes up with things with not much deep meaning to them for your actions. In fact, your subconscious is very much like your kid and can hold on to petty ass shit for a long time and not forget about it. So, yeah, be warned about that. Stuff that's in your past that you may or may not be aware that you're even thinking of it pops up. It becomes the world's worst thing, and it's only so bad, and you stop to realize the other perspective on their side. At least I did. So, yes, do I think it's reasonable to say that a person could do this and have these feasible things happen? It's possible. It's also possible that it's entirely different for every individual, and then no matter how hard they meditate, they will never get to the point where I did. And I can guarantee you, if 7.6 billion people are on the planet, there's going to have to be at least one that has that example. So, yeah. And so, truthfully, I think that there are things about a way it connects depending on how it tries to adapt to the situation that is around them that ultimately determines how you're going to be affected by the various things in your life, even not regarding chemicals that you put into your body. Okay. So do I think trauma survivors should take this? It really depends. You could be in a place that honestly this would just be detrimental to you and would never help. You could also be in a place where it could do the exact opposite and be extremely beneficial to you and help you tremendously. There's no way of knowing. However, I do feel that people know if something's right for them or not, like that gut thing. And they'll be afraid of, especially if you're anxious and you've been abused and you've had your depression issues, self-worth issues. You feel anxious when you want something. You feel bad about wanting something because they teach you that wanting something, needing something is bad. Because you should only want and need what that person thinks and wants and needs. That's not the case. You have your own things. Try and see it as it is, if you can. It's unfortunate that they did this to you. It's unfortunate that it's going to probably be with you for the rest of your life. But you should not let them continue having that power and control over you. I don't know. In general, most mental health professionals will tell you that, yeah, it's a good idea to get away from it, work on it, so that way it doesn't disrupt your life and cause all these problems. I'm realizing as the lion's mane and mushrooms continue to go through my system, how much that I lost over time due to everything that was going on. How much mental health I lost over time. How much damage I did to my body and my brain over time. And how that affected how I acted and reacted. It's significant. It's so different. It's ridiculous, in all honesty, as to how big of a change it has been in just under a month of taking these supplements. In both mood and memory and nerves and feelings and tactile sensations and my gut all of a sudden feeling full again and getting acid and getting nauseous. Like, there's so much stuff that is helping because nerves go everywhere in your body, and there are neurons everywhere in your body along with other cells that can still be helped as well. It just goes to show you like how much damage a person could receive and not realize like how much is affecting them, especially if it's slow and it could be caused by an individual event that you don't know about caused it, and it just steamrolls. It can be so much worse than it is, than it should be. I think if you're any sort of impact sports person of any sort, you should probably be on this. I wouldn't say, hell, I'd say if you were an NFL player, your primary goal would be to take this in decent dosages, 2 grams or above. And, of course, have your good diet and exercise. Don't fucking take painkillers. Take your anti-inflammatories rather than that. Don't get addicted to opioids. Only use them when it's needed. Opioids are something that will ruin your life. Same with amphetamines. Don't do amphetamines. You're going to stick to coffee, caffeine, or tea. You're going to stick to those 2 things. Don't do anything other than that. You don't need more powerful stimulants than coffee. Okay, if you need more powerful stimulants than coffee, then you need to sleep, not have more powerful stimulants. Okay? Now, granted, not everything in life is like that, and you're not able to always be able to have that crunch time and to be able to sleep, but I still believe that it is definitely a better option to go to bed rather than stay up another night with whatever concoction of amphetamines that you happen to be doing just to study? What is this bullshit? Like, you aren't even getting money for it. It's to study to pass an imaginary grade that in reality could only potentially get you more money. Not that it will get you more money or even will get you money, but it's a potential. It's a stupid asinine system that's basically broken, and I don't like it. So, yeah. Almost all systems in America, everywhere really in the world, I feel like, are stress-induced bullshit that doesn't really measure the true test of what they learned. It's just so dumb that I don't understand it. The fact that we used to have rituals where you would do that one thing and that would be your test and that would be it, and it would be your stress and anxiety and everything else leading up to it, and then you were done and it was over and it was good. And you didn't need to worry about it anymore. Well, guess what? Now you have that same tribalistic expectation of needing to perform perfectly for this ceremony of test to measure your knowledge to be able to move forward in your life. And if you don't do well, then obviously you're not good enough to do well in life. Do you see the stupidity that arises from these things? I understand that you need to be able to test and teach. That's all well and good, but there are different ways of doing it, and oftentimes, almost all of them are better hands-on, learning directly from wherever you are wanting to learn, instead of at a school that teaches you through reading and numbers. Now, if your thing is about reading and numbers, then obviously that's probably where you want to go, but there are a significant portion of individuals that do not do that. They read and they write numbers, but it's not the job. It's a part of the job. Sometimes. You know what I mean? There are many more individuals in those categories than yours. I understand that you want to say that, yes, you matter, and you do, but it's not to the same extent because you're not the majority. In this example. So... anyways, as I feel like time has gone on more and more and more of this is being seen in a light that is negative. And people are seeing the negative consequences more and more. And there's pushback because in the past, I did it, I survived, I got these things done, yada, yada, yada. I hate that stupid example. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. Literally, when someone says that, I start laughing on the inside because I'm like, how can you be that dumb? But the fact is, people don't understand that there are other perspectives and opinions beyond their own. And if they do understand, they don't understand that they're also important when it comes down to this. Okay? Like how you react and how you function in tests and studying and all that is extremely individual. And depending on what's going on in your home, drastically changes what's going to happen. An individual can be extremely intelligent but be in a broken home, and ultimately they will accomplish nothing. In the same token, an asshole that has a shit ton of money will get the free ride all the way up to the top. It's not fair. It's not justice. And you know that what we're really doing is causing greater and greater issues upon ourselves by nepotism and lack of overall intelligence at the top. You guys are dumb. Like, once you get to a certain point, you stop trusting people when you're at the top. And you need to. Like, that's the thing. You get concerned about making sure the money comes in, making sure the business stays afloat, and that's it. And for some companies, honestly speaking, you don't even need to do that. Where am I going with this? I don't know. Just, it annoys me. It annoys me a lot. It makes me realize, like, how little control you have over a say in how you get treated and how you're going to be able to come up in the world. There are only certain avenues of approach to making things work that are readily available, especially for those who simply cannot do anything else because they are so mentally challenged or whatever. They need this help, but they are stuck in this bullshit. And then on top of that, you have compounding issues of overall way too much stress, way too much anxiety, way too much pressure involving both your status and how you're perceived due to that status, but also how much money and everything else that goes on into it. America is a giant land race of just survival. Set up with predators in mind. And unfortunately, you're going to have to be a predator to be able to break it. So somehow you're going to have to be able to be extreme and manipulative and all the other things that are going to be going on, all while somehow maintaining your compassion, maintaining your mental morals and ethics. Stuff gets broken down, changed, warped, abused. And that's when stuff stops. Alright, that's when there is no more helping, it's just you. Unfortunately, a lot more of that happens than in politics than most want to admit. I can guarantee you there are a fair number of individuals that are in positions of power that genuinely thought that they were going to be able to do something and then didn't realize that you basically have to be schmoozing with everybody. Your worst enemy to your best friend is constant, never-ending battles of the wit and manipulations and saying this and this, and it just becomes unbearable. Nobody would survive this. It becomes untenable for your mental health and well-being over time. there are ways of making it work. It's just the ways that the people are using at the top, I feel, are wrong and incorrect. Alright, I'm gonna take a break. I need to feed the dogs. It is 9:04 p.m. now, same day. 9:05. Anyways. I got some stuff done. I got Costco done. I got half of the SMI stuff done. I've got plans for tomorrow to get the primary care done, and if I can't, then I'm gonna fucking just find someone new, because this is some bullshit, and it needs to change, and I do not need to be treated this way. Like, we waiting for, this is now going on 2 weeks, and I understand it's the beginning of the year, but goddamn, you said you would have a motherfucking doctor by now, and you should definitely have people there to take a call. But you don't. You don't. Anyways. Yeah, that slightly annoyed me, because it wasn't my fault that I couldn't get it done, and that pissed me off. It was somebody else's fault. You know, basically, if you want to boil it down to why, if you ever have the issue, this is something I kind of need to do for myself, but the reason why I was so annoyed is not because it was someone else's fault or any of that. It's just, it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just something I wanted to do. I didn't get done, and ultimately I don't like that. Don't know what's going on, so getting angry is an assumption that I'm getting angry over it, so it's stupid to me, anyways, and so I don't plan on continuing to do that. But I do plan on driving down there tomorrow and setting up a fucking appointment. They're not getting away from me that easy. I kinda gotta go to Fry's tomorrow too. Get some basic groceries. Some yogurt and some fruits and veggies. That's really it. I do not need much else. Smell has started to come back more and more, but it comes and goes. Definitely comes and goes. There are moments of where, oh wow, I'm smelling something again, and then it goes away, and but it's been happening more and more frequently, and so I'm getting excited about the possibility of having my sense of smell back. Detail and my hearing has become much better as well. Not so drastic that I can hear again or anything like that. It's mostly the stuff that I kind of lost while I was having my neck and all that sort of pain. I really need to go to a dentist and check out my teeth and make sure I don't have anything else going on. Because the increased risk of dementia, damage to my heart, blood clots forming, all this, I really need to get in touch with better oral hygiene habits. Truthfully, I've never been good with my oral hygiene since I was a kid. At most, I would take months to floss, or sometimes weeks to even brush my teeth once. And this is growing up through childhood while drinking soda and on top of that and everything else. With junk food and bad candy and, yeah, sugar basically. Lots of sugar and acid and other things that ultimately killed a lot of my teeth. Got 4 crowns. Didn't get those on a whim. Although now that I've seen how often my old dentist recommends crowns for any sort of ailment is ludicrous, and they're making hand over fist in money, and there are definitely people that are abusing individuals by appealing to the fact that they're authoritarian figures that have an expert opinion that are telling you to do something, and that's very powerful. It will make you want to do that. You're in a certain setting, and you're in a whole place where basically you want to do what they say because you believe that they know what they're talking about. And if you're in a panic situation, of course you're going to believe them. Or if you're gullible, or if you don't know what's going on, or in general, if you're just a standard average person like everybody else. It's literally, like, it's rare for people to immediately think that they're wrong and that they're not going to do what they say. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it's just rare. And you make a lot of money off of it. And so those doctors, and by doctors I mean dentists, ply their trade and get their crowns and get their money. More greed for them. Greed begets greed. Greed begets power. Greed begets anger. Greed begets destruction. Chaos. So many other things. It's bad. Greed is a good emotion when used in the right way. Are you telling me it's not greedy as human beings to want to populate the entire earth and run it as the apex predator? That's what we do. It's greedy. We don't integrate ourselves into the land. We don't integrate ourselves in with the ecological environment that's in the area. We don't integrate ourselves at all. We take over and we plop down what we need. Anyways. It's super complicated because, yeah, it's great to point out the flaws, but you also got to realize that there's reality that's attached to those flaws. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly, oh, you just do this and then it's all done and over with and everything's peachy keen. It's not the way it works. This is a huge global systemic problem from people at the bottom and the top that are brainwashing and have been brainwashed to believe what they believe is correct. And it's not. It just isn't. They'll have proof. I put proof in quotation marks. Proof that it works. And they'll point out examples like this greedy gentleman who previously in the year took multiple bonuses and did so as a result of changing certain policies at his company to gain the profit he needed, decided to donate an X amount, whatever the fuck it is, it's a percentage of whatever they made, so that way they don't have to pay as much taxes. And that's not even getting into the ones that decide to just fucking go to a tax haven. You gotta have big bucks for those, though. Yeah. Anyways. It's troublesome. I feel alone. I feel weak. I feel sad and tired, but accomplished and happy that I was able to push myself and excited about the future. I've been having ruminating thoughts constantly, just constant thoughts all the time. It just don't want to stop. It's kind of really annoying. It's one of the reasons why I like cannabis. It really slows those thoughts down. Helps me focus a lot. Gives me good motivation and interest on the things that I enjoy. But that's the thing. It doesn't give me enjoyment or interest in something I wouldn't have enjoyed before. Granted, when you first start out, it might because everything feels new, but eventually you get used to the feeling and what you're doing, and your body reacclimates and basically just makes things better that are already nice for you, and eases some of the issues that aren't as nice for you. So, yeah. It's weird because, like, I have all these emotions, I have all these feelings. Where were they earlier, all throughout last year? Glad I have them now, but goddamn, if it wasn't for, like, faux everything, it feels like stuff's actually starting to get felt now, instead of, like, an afterimage or a ghost of what actually it is I felt. It's very intriguing. I would love to know the mechanism of action as to what actually occurred in my brain when either the mini stroke or the UTI plus infection and subsequent antibiotics or my supplements or whatever combination I need. Like, it would make me feel so much better if I just knew, okay, and I could say definitively, this is what happened, these are the causes, and this is the result that you're now facing and seeing as a result of what you have done, or what has happened. And I don't have that, and that's scary. It's very scary. I understand that I might be doing better, and that I hope to continue doing better, but I need to know so that way I don't have the option of doing it again. You know what I mean? Like, if there's ever down the line when the emotional destruction seems to have been downplayed a little more thanks to the easing of time, am I going to suddenly do certain things again? Am I going to suddenly starting up with the same old tricks, with the excess amount of supplements, of excess amounts of well, there was a few things I wanted to say, but the point is, exercise, going overboard with eating too little and not really all that not nutritious enough to take into that account about how little you were actually eating, along with the mental hardships, the problems there. What was going on? Was it the antibiotics that I had that just furthered the problem, or was it something else, or what occurred here? I want to know. I need to know so that way I can just know, and if anybody else ever happens to go, I can warn them to say, hey, don't do this. This is what happened to me. If you do this, harm reduction is a big deal. I suppose it's also one of those things where, for individuals like myself, you don't really learn until after the fact of doing something bad. I know that's unfortunate, but there are a lot of individuals that will be told that something's bad, but they want to experience themselves how bad it really is. Not because they don't, sometimes because they don't trust them, but oftentimes it's not even to do with that. It's just, it's in their nature to want to see for themselves. And unfortunately, that can end catastrophically. It's not an easy feat. It's not an easy feat. I'm still recovering. Like, I'm acting as if I've recovered, but I'm not. I have not recovered. Nothing is so dramatically shifted or changed. Yes, I'm getting better mentally and physically due to the supplementation and proper diet. I'm trying to get sleep under control. And say by proper diet, I mean I've slowly decreased the amount of junk food I've been eating, and I've been slowly reducing the caloric intake of those junk foods, but also of other foods. I'm not eating as much in terms of portion size, and just trying to get myself back into those healthier habits. It helps that I gained back the ability to feel full again and fulfilled after a meal, and be able to experience what it feels like to have like because back in the day this used to happen as well, but I'm starting to get it again. But when I eat something, I can feel what it is I ate spreading through my stomach outwards. It's nutrients, it's energy, that it's containing, it's chemical energy, spreading out and being used by my body. And then the next thing I know, like, I have this boost in energy, this boost in sense of well-being, this boost in just mental just niceness, I guess, is as accurate as I can say it. That was gone by the time I hit November of 2 years ago in 2017, and had my mental break. I literally couldn't feel what I was eating at that point, other than just constant pain. It was bad. It was real bad. And it took until this point now that, like, I can start feeling again. Like, I clearly did something to my stomach that damaged either the vagus nerve or the nerve sheath or whatever it is. I did something to a large portion of my body, and it's recovering. It's recovering slowly. It's going to take time. And unfortunately, more than likely, I'll never return to quote-unquote back to normal, There's no such thing as normal once this occurs. You are brand new. This is life-changing. There is nothing that will get you back to being what you were before the event. You have to adapt and grow and all that. Unfortunately, brain damage isn't something that's easily helped, especially individuals who may suffer brain damage after going through many, many years of trauma that's emotional and physical, and mental, or any of them, really. It doesn't necessarily even matter. But yeah, it's one of those things where where was I going with this? So, emotions. I forgot. But yeah, just the general basic of my feelings are that this mushroom is helping. I'm seeing results. I'm categorizing results over time that coincide with similar feelings of potential healing of my nerves. I want to know what the hell is basically, why the fuck did my brain start doing the things it did? Like, what was the brain damage? Did I, through this use of this mushroom, just help the myelin sheath of that major neuron? Or did I, like, stop the progression of other breakdown of proteins? Or, like, I'd love to get tested for Alzheimer's personally. I would just straight up do it. Dementia, Alzheimer's, any of it. I would Like, yeah. But so, like, what occurred in my brain that made it so that I was so impulsive and so angry and so off, like unable to feel, but still feeling. Like, what is going on is what I want to know. Um, and I don't think I'll find the answers, which is frustrating to me. Um, I don't understand really quite how to say anything about it other than I hope I can get some tests done, maybe get referred to the Mayo Clinic for a study or something. If I can convince my new doctor to send me that way. Um, After whatever tests they deem appropriate, or whatever the case is. I mean, I saw a neurologist, both of which said everything was fine, which leads me to believe that there's a significant damage to the nerves that I was experiencing. What I want to know is, what the fuck was doing it? Like, my migraine started happening way back in 2015, 2014-ish, 2015-ish is when I started getting treatment because I started seeing these visual disturbances that were not anything like, um, psychedelics or even meditation or schizophrenia. They were fairly common auras and stuff like that you usually get with atypical migraines or migraines in general. And so I was seeing those. Uh, and they got progressively worse and more often. And then I eventually I eventually switched completely over to cannabis and more or less stopped them, so to speak. Still get them from time to time, eye strain and mental health strain, but Botox that they gave me really seemed to help temporarily, and then it didn't, and it was really just my cannabis at that point. I haven't had them since. Truthfully, like, I've had a few migraines, but comparative to the past, it's nothing. And unlike in the past, my atypical migraines have pain, or regular migraines. They have pain associated with them and significant mood swings, which was associated with the ones in the past as well. Yeah, that's bad, isn't it? Just constantly creating new issues. Like, because the timeline, I know what the timeline is to that point. I want to know. I think that's when it started. I think because before that they were saying, oh, well, you probably had migraines as a kid. Bullshit. There's no way. Like, I had headaches, don't get me wrong, but they were like anything else that you'd get from Concerta or anything like that. And you take it on an empty stomach. You get your upset stomach and you get your real bad fucking headache. But I never had migraines to that point. Or I might not have known that I was having migraines, but I never had headaches that were so detrimental. I just had a constant, always headache, is the best way to put it. And the best way to put it is stress tension. anxiety, depression, creates headaches. And you're in school, you stay up late and you have to wake up early and you go throughout that and you get ostracized and you don't have any friends and blah, 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 blah. School's rough. Like, if you don't set up right, school is never a good thing. The awkward kid in the corner is getting fucked over a lot more than you and your slightly angry mom. Truthfully, that kid needs more help than you do. More often than not. I can't say for certain, and I don't know the situation, and yada yada yada. Just my 2 cents. You know what I mean? Everything should be taken with a grain of salt in these journals. There are going to be many things that are said that are mostly my opinion, and while I may revise them to be slightly better in terms of being more objective with things, it does not change that I still have to deal with, whatever, fuck it. Yeah, I'm losing my train of thought halfway through my sentences. It's actually really not fun. I did manage to finish my coffee, that was in the crock pot. I have the rest of the grounds saved up. I plan on maybe using them for my first mycelium grow. Or my first, actual psychedelic mushroom grow. But I don't know. I mean, that's the truth of it, is I want to go to Sport Point. I want to do the whole thing. I am also very well aware that I'm very well aware that I have no money to start doing any of it, so it's kind of a moot point. I don't even have some of the things that I really need, I feel. Like, the Instant Pot is not a full 15 psi, it's like an 11 something. It's a pressure cooker that has its own digital bullshit, but it's not a real pressure cooker, which I don't understand why they would be able to make one. I'm guessing they do, it's just really expensive and nobody fucking really gets it except for those individuals that are enthusiasts with the whole thing. You'd be surprised how many markets are like that, though. Where there are lots of enthusiasts that will buy these high-end, more specified products because it's more tailored to that audience and that demographic of individuals that are purchasing. Quite frankly, oftentimes they're all within one generation of each other and are usually older than 35. Typically much older than 40. They, at this point, should have a career. At this point, more than likely are trying to find themselves, will spend money to do so. If they have a hobby, they have no predilections or illusions that they're going to buy something for that hobby. They're not going to feel bad about it. It's their hobby. Other people can make them try and feel a little guilty, and they may, but they're still going to enjoy everything that they're going to do with their hobby. It's just how it is. We're not way off point. I don't remember what my original point was. Yeah, I just need to stop thinking and living in the moment. And I do, and then I don't. As soon as I'm alone, I'm just spinning around in my mind. It reminds me very much like what happened after my mini stroke, and subsequently going into December. That's what it feels like. That's about right around the time that I'd give the way that my body itself feels physically and emotionally, is like the way it reacts, the way it tells me stuff, the way information is going through my brain now. It just... Oh no, it wasn't Kevin Spacey. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson that was talking about, well, Louis C.K. should be able to... I just came up with the whole, like, look, you're going to need to own it. Like, if you want to get back, you're gonna own it. You're gonna take some time away from it. Own it while you're trying to come back. Acknowledge it. Show off basically what you're doing to combat it, because that's all people really need. They don't need you to say that you're going to do something. What they need you to do for the public is to be able to show them that you are actively working on an issue. And it doesn't matter anyone, really, public or private. Everybody usually wants to see others do well, and ultimately they understand that there's an issue that is going on, hopefully, and they understand that you're taking steps to improve and become better and no longer that person. If you don't give them the chance or ability to come back from mistakes, no matter how big they are, it shows to people that if you ever make any mistakes, no matter how small, it's the end of the world. Your life can end. A simple... And that's good for some things, that's bad for others. I think that both of them had... Oh, wow, I went off on a way big tangent. Let's get back to the original thing. But yeah, own up, talk about it, show what you're doing. Basically, we get put on the back hole, take all the jokes, run with it. You are going to be the asshole. You're going to get to be the asshole. You are also... most likely never going to ever not be known as that individual. The people that are young enough that didn't experience what happened, that gave you that name, will not have those initial predilections and preconceived notions because they are new. But I guarantee you, time changes things. As they grow older, they get more information. So, brand new, oh, who's this guy? Oh, wow, what's his history? Oh. Yes. Yeah, there's something else I was supposed to be talking about. Right, my body and how it's feeling. It's doing better. There are various things that are definitely showing to me physically and emotionally that I'm getting healed in some way. I would like to know why. And what's healing in my brain and what's allowing me to go back to that point. You see, while yes, I have gotten better mentally, and I have had some time to go over and figure out better ways and stuff like that, but it's extreme to me that such a drastic change has occurred, and I cannot, for the life of me, get back. Because up until that point, until that mini stroke, I had no issues with sleeping. None. I was rock solid for about 2 years thanks to cannabis before that point. Didn't matter what I was taking, didn't matter at all. Like, hell, that 2016 year, I literally went to bed every day within 30 minutes and woke up every day within 30 minutes. Same time. Usually around 8, I think. 8 or 9. And I did that religiously. Like, compared to now, it's so night and day with how my brain reacts. And that's where I think I get some of that energy that I was talking about that showed up. I think it caused brain damage, and my brain started rewiring traffic through areas that maybe aren't the best. Or maybe it opened up something. I don't know, but yeah, it's troublesome. I did earlier say that it was similar to like what I imagined individual that's never had depression for as long or as significant as myself to be. I'm also under no illusion that that's not really like doesn't just because I think that doesn't mean it's true. You know. And so I'm concerned. I wanna. What the fuck was I literally just talking about? Yeah, as you can tell, I'm slowly fading here. I did take my night medication earlier, so yes, that is a possibility. But yeah, I'd like to know what damage was caused and what caused this to happen with my sleep. The two main things that I discovered that drastically physically changed was not the stuff going on my right side of my face. It was actually like I couldn't regulate my breathing anymore. I couldn't after this point I wasn't able to take a full inhalation. I wasn't able to completely relax. I wasn't able to let go as easily. It was different. Everything became different. My emotions before were fairly ordered, and the storm clouds and chaos were kind of gone by that point. And like it concerns me that I'm not able to figure out where things started to occur and how things started to occur, and how bad things are, or if they are that bad. Yeah, I just want to know what I could do to help the situation. I would love to know what happened because I think I could help myself if I knew what would happen. For example, if I knew I had certain types of brain damage in certain areas, I more than likely would attempt my best to consistently activate those areas of the brain to try and reduce the damage and increase interconnectivity and ultimately help out the overall area in the first place. There's physical things that you can do, physical exercises or games, or video games if that's some of the issues. Like there's left-right brain interconnectivity that happens significantly with video gaming, specifically first-person shooters and puzzle games. There's an increased, if I remember correctly, I don't even remember what the study was anymore, but I think it was last year I saw puzzles could increase hearing, cognitive function, helps keep cognitive function basic, and then video games help to increase the interconnectivity in between the left and right hemisphere of the brain, as well as facilitated more connections in between those halves as well. So, yeah, it would probably be advisable for me to start playing some games and do some things that I need to do to be able to start figuring out how to control some of my issues. I've noticed that when I video game back in the day, like I used to have a lot more control over myself. In fact, right around when I started playing video games on the PC or wherever, it was right around the time when I had a reduction in my overall outbursts towards the family and towards other individuals at school. So, yeah, video gaming can be a huge help. I just have a shitty computer that I really kind of need to rebuild, but I don't have the money, and I have other things that I have to focus on, and then this is technically part of it. It's a whole cycle. Like, if you have the money ahead of time to start up the whole thing, then it's a little easier. It's one of the reasons why I don't say that I don't like the idea of saying that richer people have it the same as people of a lower class. I understand that you have your issues and that they feel bad for you. I also understand that you're able to basically deal with it better in every facet. And anyone that goes, oh, no, I have to go, oh, no, right back to you. Don't you give me that bullshit. Don't you try and sell me fucking baby powder and tell me it's some fucking cocaine. I know that Johnson & Johnson talcum shit. Bitch, I'm gonna blow your fucking head off. I'm not going to, because that would result in other worse consequences, but I think I'll figure out a way to make your life genuinely annoying and for you for the remainder of like at least a year. Let's see after a year if you become a better person after multiple issues that keep constantly occurring into your life and that you have to strive to work around towards and learn new, oh yes, that's right, habits. And do you do that? I don't want to say anything. I mean, sure, I advised to certain individuals in my head that, yeah, it would be nice if certain things were to happen to other individuals, but really, what does that mean? Especially when you're delusional still, kind of. Like, I'm still believing some of my delusion. The committee, the thing, like, people listening and what I'm saying, and sending the information off to other individuals and having it manifest in its own way is crazy. And the idea that instead of it being that, it's something else, like, oh, I'm connected to these individuals And I don't realize they're actually real, but and they're bouncing ideas off their subconscious, and I'm affecting their subconscious in their own way, and implanting ideas every so. It's like, you know what I mean? It just seems preposterous. It seems delusional. It seems straight out of a standard psychosis playbook. However, I also have to realize that I don't see people, I don't hear them, I feel what they say, I feel how they act. I feel like it's not me seeing or hearing or any of this. It's a feeling. It's so odd because when you get it described to you from schizophrenics, it's an entirely different thing. Let's skip past the whole fact that they're most likely only going to have terrible hallucinations that are not good. They actually see the things. They actually hear the things. Alright? And beyond that, they can just have all these other extra little tidbits that get included into their thinking patterns that come from almost nowhere. What you realize is that it's a product of a brain that's skipping. And it's resetting itself, and it skips a little bit and it scratches, and then it goes forward and it scratches a little again, and it just creates a lot of noise that you have to get through to get to what is reality. That's terrible. These are people that are not going through a psychedelic trip. These are not people that went through a life-changing meditational, transcendental meditational experience. Alright, these are people that have actual physical issues with their brain that are causing similar symptoms to what you experience while on psychedelics. However, it doesn't come with the added benefit of the neurotransmitters that it usually expresses, and instead often is a result of a lack of neurotransmitters or an overabundance of specific types. I believe I worked myself up into a frenzy, constantly thinking I needed more and more and more dopamine, norepinephrine. And I kept thinking, oh, these people that are following me are doing all these things, they need to give me these drugs because that, and I pushed everybody away. Like, even in my own fucking fantasies. I started pushing people away. I started intentionally asking too much. I started pushing and continuing to do that indefinitely, and it never really stopped. I kept getting angrier. I kept getting worse. My delusions and people that were in my delusions were, well, angry. Upset, disappointed, disgusted. All these negative emotions. But they still carried out what I told them to do. Give this guy this information. Give that guy this information. Tell him this. Tell him that. Or her. Or whatever. Do this and have this happen. Egg up this individual. Create situations like this. And so on. Now, I thought, I guess in a way my mind was trying to rationalize it, but I thought that people were just listening in on me, had microphones set up and all that. However, now that I've come down from my psychosis and delusions, I'm not so paranoid as to think that there are constantly microphones always monitoring me, or secret hidden cameras that are pinhole and stuck in the vents, or this car that followed me and then switched over when he talked to this individual on his phone. And switched over to this guy that was on his phone, and then they flip off, and he goes off and does his thing, and this next guy is the one that's following me. And at first I thought maybe it was for protection, because I thought I had 3 individual parties, and then 4, and then 5 individual parties at the end there, all from either government or hackers or entertainers, anything. And I've come to realize I think a lot of those may have been those individuals in my head that were connecting around all this chaos that I could feel. I could feel all this chaos out in the world, and I wanted to fix it, and I wanted to change it, and I wanted to make it better, any way, shape, and form, and I knew how, and the best way I know how is aggression, violence, and destruction, in a manner that's highly manipulative to make it a good outcome. I shouldn't be laughing at that, because ultimately I ordered the deaths of thousands of people. And I genuinely don't know how I live with myself. The only thing I can say is it wasn't real. And even then, that doesn't change that I said those things, and I meant for them to get hurt, or whatever was going to happen. Thinking that when I went on one of my manic rants, thinking I was playing a character, I shouldn't say that, thinking I was playing the individual, an individual that was going through those things, the things I was saying, I thought were the words that were inside of an individual's head that I was connected to, and I was talking through them and explaining what is going on, or in some cases ghosts, leftover remnants of people's consciousness and memories coming through me and giving me information that I didn't have before, and helping me ascertain stuff in my life. Unfortunately, if you didn't know, their entirety was up for grabs. There was everything. There was nothing not exposed. Both how they felt, their feeling, not just their feelings and emotions, but the reasons why they thought the way they did, and how they acted, and the reasons why they acted how they did, and all this. And it created these seeking out moments of, after going through some slight meditation, kind of feeling like I was Professor X, honing in on these little storm clouds of energy, and then rocketing off into a rant that I felt was from their mind. And I continue to try and rationalize it. There are these people that are listening in on me. There are these people that are doing things in the background. There has to be. There are these, so many players in this big giant thing. And what I didn't stop and think was, well, what if it isn't based in science? What if it isn't a reality, so to speak, that is attached to her own, and instead is the sort of paralleled universe, all within our minds? Or what if that's not necessarily, I mean, that was like a really quick judgment guess, and then I kind of quickly moved on because I didn't think it felt right. But, like, the idea of this interconnectivity, this everything is connected by these strands of something, energy, harmonics, and all this oscillations and vibrations of the not molecules, but individual atoms and electrons themselves, and the even further and deeper down, the very wigglings of energy that spikes and stays entrapped in these fields that create what is ultimately an atom or quark or neutrino or whatever. And still even further below that, there was this connection of infinitium, is the best way to put it. It's infinite, never-ending, always connectedness. It's like a network of everything, but not like a grid as you might normally see it, or even one of those things where you take a shit ton of points over a surface and then you get basically a dot point matrix style, or even connecting the dots and making it all hexagon or whatever the case is, and doing that. It didn't even look like that. It was this. The best way to put it is like an energized, like a plasma, but almost as if it wasn't a plasma. It was energy, electricity. But it flowed, and it rolled, and it moved, and it collapsed, and it acted like gas, and then it would turn into like solid, and immediately you'd see a connection reach out and touch and then go away in the same instant, and constantly form and go away, and you would see these harmonics. I started getting the itch to try and figure out how to combine general relativity and gravity together in such a way that they could be possibly linked, I guess, although later kind of started to try and become the theory of everything, but initially it kind of started mostly out as that, just trying to figure out what the fuck gravity was. I didn't have any sort of science outside of what I've already heard in various documentaries that almost everybody knows about this time. They have this standard, so I knew what the basic standard was, with some added in between, because I'm a little nerd and I fucking rock that shit. You ain't got nothing on my nerddom. Fuck you and your chadness. Thank you very much. Go take your chad somewhere else. This is where the nerds play. Bye bye. It's very, very inclusive of you. The dude doesn't have pants on. Fuck off. Go away. No, but yes, it was this weird combination energy thing that just spread out infinitely. It was infinitely tight, There's literally, it didn't matter how close you wanted to examine this thing, it would always spread out and be more. There was no end to the limit of smallness / bigness you could get, because it was relative. There wasn't a big or small, there just was. Everything at once. All of it connected together in its own various ways. Inky, blacky, colorful, changing, iridescent, everything that you could imagine. And it felt like colors were energies and other things like movements were reactions and actions and thoughts, and so many interconnected weird things. It was sublime to travel around while I was meditating in that and see what it was I could see. And then that's when I had my mini stroke, and that's when I had all the other stuff go down, and now we're here. Yeah. I miss this. I miss it. Honestly speaking, the manic nature of it was so addictive. So addictive. It was something that I don't think could be rivaled without serious drugs. Because once I got into a particular flow state, once I got the euphoria, and then on top of that, the intense, like, intrigue and anything that I was doing was, like, it just became ridiculous, over the top, insane, and I loved every second of it. It was also some of the worst ever things, and I hated every minute of those. Constantly hearing, well, not hearing, but feeling these individuals in my head condemning me for doing and saying these things about, honestly, imaginary crap. But I didn't know that. I thought it was all real, because I got constant confirmations of these things that were happening over and over again that I had talked about previously. Yeah, it's weird. In that it was both single-handedly one of the most destructive things, and single-handedly one of the most intense experiences that I've ever gone through in my life. I truly thought I was making a difference. I truly thought that what I was, I mean, if you didn't, then you wouldn't do it, I'd have to say, but unless you're a sociopath or psychopath. But the things I said and everything that I was putting on in the background with these individuals that didn't exist was something I thought I was fighting for the world, fighting for and succeeding in making the individuals that were causing these issues trouble, like in various ways, either having individuals show up that they never wanted to have come out in public, or having things like their financials pop up. For instance, in 2016, there was that whole EU tax haven shit. Yeah, Simon Cowell was the big one that everybody, he was a celebrity. Reality-wise, they shouldn't even talk about him. They should have talked about the fucking terrible corporations that did that. So anybody that goes, I need my taxes, really? Really, you fuckwad? You need those profits completely. Couldn't put any of the money into funding good programs. If you're going to do a tax having of $37 million, that $37 million better be going towards something that's decent and good. But it's not. Instead, it powers more and more of your corporation. That's all it's good for. So yes, schizophrenia does run in my family. My mom doesn't have it, but her mother did. However, I'm not entirely certain she was even diagnosed properly as well, and might have had similar issues as to mine. She had her issues, and I didn't know what was going on, and it just was I was too young. All I have is the information my mom gives me, and honestly, that's not enough, or even what I would consider accurate. So it's not that I'm not saying that she's lying. She's telling everything to the best of what she can remember, but memories are faulty. Even when I'm talking about my past and how I'm remembering this and all that, I'm still taking it with a grain of salt, because I don't know if memory is, think about it this way. All we have is the current time. We measure time through entropy. But the fact is, entropy is relative dependent on the energy that is involved in a given system. And so, time is a relative in that sense. You could be in one area and you could be in another area, and that area might in general have less total energy to help facilitate the entropy needed to cause your time to move at the same rate as you were on Earth. There's no way of proving that. Because even if you create an incredibly cold environment, it does not spread over billions of light years, potentially. You have no idea what it's like on the inside of something like that. So devoid of any and all possible energy that you, just by being there, creates a significant jump. This isn't to say it's going to destabilize you, but I really wouldn't know, and it'd be more up to a physicist anyways. And I say up to them because they're the ones that tell everybody what it is. There's no debate. That's your job. Your job is to figure it out and tell us. If you're lying or you're not doing your job correctly, that's kind of a problem. So yeah, it's one of the things that I have an issue with scientists about. And a lot of them cheat, get their notoriety, get what they need initially to be able to fund things. Truth be told, though, I don't. I know it's supposed to be morally or ethically wrong, and you're supposed to say, you shouldn't have done that, or some other stuff. But I don't know, I kind of almost feel like they played the system exactly the way it was designed for them at the time. The system is shit. It is designed poorly. Research doesn't get done at the rate it should, and it certainly doesn't get done in a manner that's efficient. It's trial and error. Trial and error is an inefficient method. It takes a long time. At least with educated guesses, you can throw a dart in a general area and then spread out from there. But you still gotta trial and error. So, but yeah, there were multiple scientists that basically just lied like fucking assholes on papers and got away with it. They reduced the credibility of science, technology. That grinds my gears. It's one of the few pillars that actually can help support humanity. Okay? There are very few that you should keep even in an apocalyptic world. There's a lot of fucking bullshit that props up the bullshit. Okay? And what you get is one big giant pile of steaming bullshit. It's just layered, that's all. I don't really have anything. I'm just bullshitting around right now, I guess. Don't really have anything to talk about per se. My day is done. I'm winding down. I'm going to watch some. Lemony Snicket's An Unfortunate Series or something like that. Or basically, it goes over the Baudelaires and their exploits, and yeah, it's entertaining. Neil deGrasse Tyson is not in it at all. I don't know why I said his name. I think I was thinking of Neil Patrick Harris. So, yes, he is. He plays a wonderful Count Olaf, and just despicable. Love to hate him. Absolutely no reason to even try and care about him. Same with a couple other members of his troupe, but actually, the whole thing is wonderfully well done and shot very well, and I like it. So there you go. Calm down with that. Hope that I wake up in the morning tomorrow, I go about my business, and I still feel, I'm still able to do things. Still working on stuff. I'm still getting things together. You gotta remember that I spent an entire year, basically 2 years, almost, fucking up the good habits I created. And so it's gonna take me time to get to where I need to be. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to really do other than what I'm doing, and I ruminate on it, and I ruminate on it, and I ruminate on it, and I don't want to do it anymore, and I just need to figure out something else to do in the meantime, that I can spend my time working on and accomplishing and feeling good about. Because ultimately I feel like very few people have stuff in their lives that are like that. Stuff that they feel good that they can do and that they feel accomplished after doing it. I have to pee. So, what do I do tomorrow besides that's the thing. When I was going through my stuff last year, or even before that, there isn't what I'm feeling now. There never was, which was, oh, like, I don't enjoy doing what I'm doing. I would like to do something else. I would like to have better experiences, feel better, be better. And that kind of came down to around after I started more focusing when I was meditating on letting go of my guilt that I had, or still have. I placed a lot of burden on myself over what others acted like. And I often got told that, so there was no reason to kind of not believe it. But yes, I eventually didn't think of myself as this terrible, horrible person that did all these terrible, horrible things. And it stuck after that. Like, I just don't ever think of, even now, after going and remembering some of the stuff that I said, but not all of it. I don't feel like I'm the worst person in the world. Even when I was doing it, I had my reasons. I genuinely thought that I was helping the world and saving it. I thought that was part of a grand plan, a genuine coup, a change, a uprising, a fucking revolt, a real change was what I wanted to force in a record time. And then I started realizing all the shit that I was doing or saying. And then I went into my next person, basically, while I was driving. And I realized that he was going to do something soon. And then I went on to a whole rant about how people need to be able to do this and people should feel I don't even fucking remember, honestly. But basically very grandiose thinking about how others should learn the pain that is going on. And the change that is needed to be changed through action and violence and death. Well, there was one final mass shooting that took the cake for me. It was the church shooter as of 2017. He shot up an entire church with kids and everything, and then Las Vegas happened, where an entire wedding got mowed down. So many people. And I thought I'd ordered both of those in a small way. Like, one of the church guys, the church guy was different in that I came up with, like, oh, well, you could probably egg somebody on from 4chan that really feels a certain way and give them the basic information and egg them on and tell them it's a good idea and say, hey, all you need is this, and it doesn't matter if you're already a piece of shit anyways and you want to die, then why not take out people and so on. Just having those words uttered now made me realize just how terrible that is. A person sacrificing themselves, but not really, all for their anger? To hurt others? To try and show a small amount of terror, basically, is all that was accomplished. There was no change in gun policy. There's no anything other than let's talk about it, maybe, and even then don't. So, yeah, and I realized that after that first church person, or the church person, whatever it is, that's when I started to talk to the other individuals that I thought were recording me. So I thought I had, like I said, multiple people, multiple groups following me at this point. People that were psychedelic, or not psychedelic, but people that were telepathic, people that were dead or ghosts or something like that, or somehow still connected to I always liked coma patients, honestly. The idea that they just sort of found their way in there and blended in the background, doing various things in their own life, but you know what I mean? Like, you always have characters in the background, but you never know that never notice or even care about what's going on because they're not you or the main story. But for them, they are. So I always wondered about that sort of thing. Anyways, what was it? What was I talking about? Let's see here. I don't know. Kind of wish this had a rewind function so I could listen to what I was saying earlier. Because I'll go off on tangents to make a point, and then I'll lose track of my thought. And I need to stop going off on tangents. That's what I used to do. I used to finish my thought and then have those in the past. Just keep them inside. Nobody really needs to know about the tangent. But then everything becomes short. Boring. People like short and boring because everybody's stressed and anxious. And they don't want to deal with anything. Yeah, I hope, and I hope, and I hope, and I hope. Just basically don't want to go backwards. I am terrified of going backwards, Anyways, moving on to the whole brain drain of, like, trying to... Literally forgot mid-sentence what I was about to start talking about. I think it might be time to sort of come off of this. Yeah, like the point is that these, quite frankly, they are delusions. um, that other people using psychedelics can get too. But yeah, these delusions that spring up, and the stuff that I felt that was going on, and the multiple people that were following me and changing and interacting and doing all their own individual secret organization stuff to get their thing done that they wanted done. Not what I was talking about, not what I was asking them to do or any of that. It just was them sometimes, and that annoyed me, and it made me angry. It made me want more control over everything else that was going on. And then, like, the individual who took out the church, that's when I started talking or trying to pass along, while being what I considered in a extremely dangerous environment where people of this other organization who were murderers and all this other stuff and had no predilections of hurting me, just like the others, were doing all these things and hurting people. And I tried to basically warn cops, warn whoever, because I thought people were listening, secretly recording, because by that point I was like, why would they be recording? And why would they be listening? And then my brain came up with, well, police, something to do with maybe a hacker, or they followed the same hacker and the hacker showed them me, or whatever it was. Didn't really matter the reason. The fact is that's what I thought. I thought that I was trying to communicate to these authoritarian individuals that were connected to the government to try and help stop these giant mass shootings and all these other issues that were going on. And here I was, right in the thick of it, somehow relaying this information to either hackers or individuals or whatever. And then it just took a turn for the worse. It literally just became me ordering everybody around, pushing everything. And yeah, like, it just got to the point where I got sucked in to my fantasy that I had created for myself. So much time on my hands, so very lonely, abused, neglected, unfulfilled. All classic tropes for severe mental stress and trauma. And this is all after that mini stroke and everything else that occurred. And then potentially whatever else was going on with my supplements or whatever I had extra that was there. I think I started buying my own stuff because they gave me money so I could buy it. But then I wanted to use their account for the premium shipping, and then I started doing that. And so all in all, it was convoluted at best, murky and very not logical at all. But I believed it wholeheartedly to the deep core within me that was a thing and it was occurring and this was real. It was not, to me, fake at all. It had gone on for more than a year. Not even, well, close to a year, yeah. of this going through a meditation and then getting into a point where I take, and I go off on these tangents and these acting and all this stuff. During this point, thinking that I have figured it out or whatever. And it didn't. It was all a lie. Ultimately, it's a lie I was telling myself, and there were times throughout it that I got lucid and realized, and not even realized, even screamed at myself saying, look, you know that this isn't real. None of this is real. Why do you continue doing this? And you know that this is because you are severely, lonely and all this other stuff. And it made me realize, that after I remembered those, saying that shit to myself and going through some of these things and saying some of this stuff, it's just, I don't know really how I didn't get killed. I genuinely thought there were going to be people waiting for me over in Oregon or California, and I was going to run away. Just straight up take the car and pretend, like, write a note saying I was driving to Amherst and never go there. Like, and other shit like that. And I think back to that and I'm terrified because I thought that was a good idea, and I thought that it would work and it was real. Imagine, if you will, that I didn't have my anxiety of doing something like that, or my morals and ethics of the taking of a car that wasn't mine, that it didn't matter. Like, imagine, if you will, that just a few things are different, and now it's no longer me going to a mental health facility. It's me either being dead, close to dead, severely handicapped, or at best I just end up in a mental institution and my parents have their car back. They probably would have pressed charges by that point. And I would have had a record, and I never would have been able to even get some of the help that I need. It hurts knowing that my mother thinks that me being here was a mistake, especially now where I feel like where I am makes me feel like I made the right choice. I knew and listened to my subconscious to be able to facilitate something that would ultimately be better for me. Yes, it's not nice to be in the house that you were abused in, around the people who abused you, but it's also recommending that there are many benefits besides, or worth noting, not recommending, that there are many benefits besides just having a place to stay. Now, it would definitely be better for me to get out of here, live by myself. But the person I was when I got out of the hospital was not going to trust healthcare providers, and was not going to go down a path that I wanted or felt like I considered good, or even good enough for me. And understand that that seems a bit conceited or even narcissistic, but if you are able to control what path they're going down and you get the options and you have that gut instinct, you peer down a little further on the road, in both ways, and you look at how they're traveled, and, you don't see too much of a difference, right? But your gut is, for whatever reason, saying yay or nay on something. And that time, actually listened to it. There were many times when I didn't, and truthfully, I regretted it multiple times over in some cases. Multiple times over in some cases. So yes, I don't like the idea of saying that it's so simple, so easy. The delusions were there, the things were there, and yes, well, it's easy to say or try and come up with the idea that it wasn't good for me and it set me back and all these things, but it gave me an extreme experience test. I got to be a leader to something that was ultimately changing the world. And I failed. I think as anybody probably would if it's their first job at trying to lead something like that with literally no experience and somehow is doing it over microphones and somebody hacking you or telepathic powers. Yes. So you're super stable while you're doing this too. That's sarcasm. Very sarcastic here. If you couldn't tell. Yeah, no, it's stupid as shit. Like, it was always going to be me failing, and I didn't have help, and nobody could help me when it came down to anything that was going on in my head in the first place. And then there's the fact that it was delusional, right? Like, it was causing me mental stress, but it was all fantasy. But I got real issues and feelings from it. So, yeah, your mind can and sometimes does imagine itself into a point where you're back into a PTSD state. Or basically you're total turd. Yeah, and ultimately I felt like I ruined a lot of the relationships from the committee that was there. Many of there was one lady that said there's a trip angels or something like that. Whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I had multiple come and go, evil and good, and so yeah, I went through a lot of that. That was my delusional experience. Um, wouldn't recommend it. Wouldn't recommend it at all. There's a lot of stuff I'm leaving out, but yeah, that's for another time maybe. Um, I just don't want to ever go back to 2017 me. 2017 me was worse than post-traumatic stress kid me. 2017 me was thinking I had all the answers and had successfully treated myself while through in using the example of my delusion to prove to myself that I had done that and was failing miserably even in that, while at the same time I was going through a whole shit ton of issues with both my family and myself and the people around me. Yeah, it sucks that nobody decided to say anything or said stop or anything like that, but I'm more concerned with the fact that I didn't even understand. I didn't even realize what I was doing. I didn't even I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten. And I honestly was going along with it because I liked it. I mean, there was like a hacker group at one point that had one that was a stalker that um just wanted to be with me or constantly be watching my stuff, and these others decided to finally get rid of her or him. I say her because I was meditating and feeling their minds, and it felt like a female mind, but really, what does that even mean? And honestly, it's the first time I loved, and it was fake. It was fantasy. It was straight up not real. And I couldn't even handle it. She was literally built for my fantasy perfect. And by that I mean, like, not physically so much, because I had no idea what her physical form was. Only that I created whatever I wanted, and that was her vessel to be in my mind. And she was absolutely brilliant. The most patient individual I've ever met, the kindest, gentlest person. Challenging and so many other things. Besides, just such a unique mind to me. And yeah, it was all not real. And that hurt a lot. I still don't have the ability to say that it was completely unreal, because there's just things that we might not know. Now, am I saying I could control or I could do anything? No. It's possible that my subconscious picked up on patterns or something and was able to predict some of these occurrences, or just happened to be coincidence in other cases, and stuff in between is, just statistics, really. So, yeah, I don't really see how I could try and make myself believe that there is this person whose mind I've touched that's out there or in the universe on the other side that exists to be so wonderful. And the thing is that I believe she is whatever the individual creates, it manifests to be what they need. They absolutely need. because they didn't get it ever. People have needs and wants and feelings, man. They don't go away just because an abuser squashes them down and makes you squash them down more. They manifest in many psychological disorders and oftentimes come and present themselves both physically and in their own mental ways. Because ultimately your body wants you to fix it. Your body wants you to address it. It needs to be considered and acknowledged at least. I'm just hoping that I know I always end up going, hey, did you forget what your sentence was about? Yeah, kind of. Don't really remember the beginning of it. I'm starting to calm down. I think I'll start introducing some meditation this weekend, if not Friday. I've been slow on trying to get up any sorts of physical activity. Physical activity is something you should be careful of, especially if you've damaged your nerves, and especially if you're recovering from that. And even more so if you're overweight and you're trying to lose weight. You have to be very careful because you can damage your nerves and other parts of your body, like the cartilage in your knees and the tendons and other stuff, that ligaments that connect your joints to and from each other, and you can do a lot of damage to yourself if you're not careful. And I have to be, because I literally lost muscle mass and then gained over 100 pounds in a year and didn't really get up and move around, so I lost a large amount of the muscle I was keeping from exercise as well. And then I put weight on top of that and didn't work out even more and lost even more muscle mass, and now we're here. You got scrunched up, bunched up, messy muscles that honestly should get scraped and frauded and pulled apart so they're nice and supple again. It's going to be terribly painful, and then an osteopath adjust my bones so that way they're in a proper alignment and blood flow is better, and nerve signals don't get bent or anything like that, and so you don't have as much of a tense feeling, and so it just in general relaxes your blood vessels, and so allows for better nutrients to flow into the area, and oxygen, and heals better. It's a good thing. Massages are good. Bone adjustments are good. Physical therapy is good. Getting diet is good. All these things that I'm doing are good, and I honestly want to keep them going and do not want to stop them, which helps me push, and that's good. So I should, I guess, be happy, but I'm just afraid more than anything that I'm gonna fuck it all up again, and that I'll be stuck here, or that I won't learn anything or gain anything or be able to move forward. I don't want to be stuck anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And I think it's time to start looking into what it's going to be to really do what I want to do. And what each of those things mean, both what it is I'm going to do and what it is I want to do, are two extremely dependent on the situation answers or questions. So yeah. I don't know, it's gonna change. I can feel that. I don't know, good or bad. I would like to just figure out other stuff to occupy my time. I have started to gain some of my extrasensory abilities again, but I believe this is more or less as a result of nerve endings coming back that were overexcited and frayed and ultimately caused issues with the idea of some sort of extrasensory perception. It's not, it might be there, it might not be there, I don't know, but I definitely, like right now, have every idea of where my right arm is moving back and forth across my face and all the individual wrinkles and on my hand and how the skin is moving, and like I can also like feel and sort of see not just the shadow going across, but like the energies of where it's touching, and sort of the after image of the effect it's having. It's very weird. It's very odd, and I don't even have to be touching or anything. Anyways, I'm gonna end it here. It's about time. I'm starting to fall asleep. Alright. This is good. Thank you. Goodbye.